Hi, I'm Senior Investigator Rich Morin, and with
And
me is,
I'm Senior Investigator Ed Myron. Um, Tonight we're going to be talking about ice diving and some of the safety aspects and some of the do's and don'ts. Right, Rich?
yeah, we got some comments back, and people were like, "Hey, it's ice diving season. We kind of like to, you know, learn a little bit more, see what you guys do as far as safety procedures go." So let's get
Yep.
into it.
Yeah. So we have some pictures. We have few things that show you as far as the some of the, like Rich said, some of the procedures. I'm going to bring up one of our um, outlines here. You'll see it. It's Here we go. Um, it's basically the arrangement of how we would start.
Yeah. So
Um,
first of all, let's take a look at the arrow on the bottom. That actually points toward shore or our egress.
right.
All right. So the one right at the very bottom there, yeah, right there.
Yep.
So that points to back to shore. So we always set it up so if we have an ice sag or an ice collapse or something catastrophic happens, we got an exit out and we got an exit back to safety. All right. The circle represents the distance away from the hole. The hole is going to be the triangle, and the little squares that you see are rectangles going around the circle. Those are ice blocks that we pull out. We never push ice underneath because lines can get fouled and prevent you from pulling a diver in need back to the hole. So we never, in any circumstance, push the ice back underneath when we've got people down there, and we as far as they can be in any direction, et cetera. So it could easily follow line.
Right.
The longer rectangles that you see, the one just to the left of the diamond or the triangle rather, and the two that are
Oh, right
by
here.
the entry or exit egress area,
Yep.
those are folding tables that we use. So we go ahead and we put basically some plywood underneath the legs to keep them from sinking in. And then it makes it a nice platform for us to work off of as far as setting your gear up and getting into your gear, et cetera. So it gets it at a higher level. You can still kind of sit down on the table itself.
Right.
And then
And
the
and we
two
don't let.
squares that you see
Oh,
on each side of the table, we usually have some pallets that are out there that we use to set some gear on to keep gear from freezing to the ice sheet itself. So we could have multiple ones of those going around, but we never have any equipment past the bottom edge of the triangle itself, other than the safety diver. Everything is back toward the egress hole, and we spread the weight out a little bit. The round circles that you see, those are actually the two that are furthest up.
yeah,
All
right
right,
here.
those are float balls, or we call them tuna balls, and they usually have a 30-foot line attached to them. And those are attached to the ice with an ice screw, which we'll show you in a little bit. And just in case, again, if we had an issue, we had a diver that had buoyancy problems, and we couldn't quite reach them, et cetera, all we have to do is kick those, or just, we set them to where they can go all the way across the hole from either side. So it gives them a line to hold on to and they can pull, or it gives them a float ball that they can go ahead and hold on to for buoyancy. The one at the bottom of the rectangle table,
Right here.
yep, that is for the safety diver. Okay, so that's going to be their float ball. There's also an ice screw that's going to the ice surface itself, so that is all secured. And then there's a bag that we're going to work in and out of to keep the line from freezing to the ice sheet. And then the last circle that you see, that is for the dive team itself. We have the line there. It's a 100-foot line that we have. It braids off into three sections, and again, it's ice screwed down. And the ice screws are all checked prior to anybody descending, and they're
Right.
checked every single time a team goes under. And it's one of the pre-dive safety checks that we do for each and every team that's going to be going under. All right, so we have one last check that we do. One other thing that we have is where the arrow is for the egress. We set up cones, and then we have a bar that goes between the cones, a plastic bar that telescopes out. And then the little round circles that you see on the very, very bottom, you got one on each side. Those are throw bags that you learn in rescue class.
Right.
So we can go ahead again. Worst case scenario, everyone's working toward the egress. We still have somebody there. We have throw bags that we can go ahead and hold on to one end and throw the bag out to the person in need.
Right.
So again, safety, safety, safety is what we look for.
And as Rich mentioned, the tuna ball here that's used by the surface support team is 100 feet. The safety diver, his line or her line, depending on your safety diver, they have a 200-foot line. So if there is any issue, they can go out and then start a radius or circle to locate if someone were to come off the line. You want to
which
explain
in
a little bit more
39
about
years of
that?
ice diving, nobody ever
Yep.
has.
Yeah,
But,
we never have
it
had
doesn't mean
issue.
that you don't stop making safety, procedures and following those procedures, so just in case. You always plan for
Right,
worst case scenarios.
right.
All right, what else we got, Ed?
So I'm going to let's see. Let me just stop this for a second.
And a lot of people don't realize that we owned multiple dive centers, multiple locations. We had dive centers at 3 different locations, and we did a lot of ice training. Divers from all over the country came to us for ice training.
Right.
Hopefully,
So we,
some of them are listening, and they'll give us a little shout out here. And
so we have some pictures of actual on-site pictures, and you'll see one of our divers on the surface here.
yeah,
You'll
that was
see
one of
some.
our instructors right there in the
Yep.
in the dry suit right there, getting ready to go in.
And then you'll see some of the divers here in the hole, like we described in the very first. Here's the triangle right here,
So the
and
egress would be to the left,
you'll see the
closest heading towards shore.
and you see the line here going back. This is a surface support line, and there's someone on that line um, getting ready to feed that line out as the divers descend.
Yep. So we have a line tender, and then we also have additional people around to help divers in and out of their, gear, to help them in and out of the water, et cetera. Now, the reason we cut a triangle is because there's an instructor and 2 students, where you could have an instructor, a dive master, and 1 student. But we have a maximum of 3. But because of the angle on the triangle versus a square, it's easy for the divers to each one backs into a corner.
Right.
And then it's easier because of the angle to put your hands up on the ice and push and help yourself up as we have somebody else that's pulling you up. And we just bring you back up into a seated position and then slide you back, on your butt far enough away from the hole where we can start to take some of your gear off. Get your weights off first, and then we get your fins and
Then
off, and then your
get you stood
BC,
up.
then roll you over,
Yep.
stand you up, and then once we stand you up and get you're far enough away from the hole, then and only then will we disconnect you from your line.
Right.
And we'll
And
talk a little bit more about that.
you'll see one of the tuna balls that we talked about in the beginning. This one can come right across the hole if there's any issue, can be kicked across the hole or pushed across the hole. And there's one here outside the picture that you can't see. Again, those can be kicked or pushed across the hole, thrown across the hole, whatever. But
Yep.
here they are. This is one of them right here that we mentioned before.
Yep. You can see everyone's got helmets on.
Yep.
The person with the yellow helmet, because of the hood that they were wearing, I think they were wearing a neoprene hood, thick one. So our standard CSI helmets that we had, or recovery helmets that we had, would not fit. So we
Wouldn't
have,
fit.
helmets that are in larger sizes also.
Right.
So we're able to fit everybody.
Let me go. Here's another picture.
All right, so here's an example of getting somebody set up, getting ready to enter the water. There's, the instructor that's sitting on the far right-hand side with the feet in the water. They just got back from a dive, and they're just trying to warm up a little bit, before they take the next team in. But you can see a lot of help. Everybody's in some type of flotation, though. And when I say that, because if somebody accidentally fell in the hole, we want to make sure that they're going to be, one, they're going to be fairly warm, and then 2, that they're going to float, that we don't have to worry about somebody sinking at this point. So
Right.
the person kneeling, they are in a dry suit.
Right here.
The dry suit is, we don't allow anybody inside the circle unless they have flotation. If they have a dry suit on, the dry suit must be completely on. It's got to be zipped up, and it has to have attached wrist seals. I know some dry suits, there's no wrist seals. Instead, you have dry gloves that snap in. But here's the issue. If they fall in and they don't have their dry gloves on, they're just wearing a pair of neoprene gloves like what he's wearing right here, that suit's going to flood.
Right.
So that's no good. So it's just like having your zipper open. So in this case here, he's got wrist seals on the suit, and he's got some neoprene mitts that's making it a little bit easier. So he is in flotation. If he fell in right now, there's plenty of air in that. And we don't allow anybody to have weight belts on
Right.
unless they're or weight systems, unless their scuba units are on. So they're not allowed to walk around, with their dry suit on and their weight system, because that kind of defeats the purpose. So if we look at the person in the orange, that's actually everything he's wearing. That jacket is actually flotation device, and the overalls that he has on are actually flotation. So if he fell in, he would be floating on the surface on his back like a cork. And then
The,
the
the
other
last
person,
person
Ed,
here.
what do you see there?
Yep. So he's wearing an actual life jacket. He's prepping the diver right now. He's checking the carabiners, and he has a life jacket on. Again, no one inside the circle without some type of flotation, and so he has a life jacket on right here, getting the diver ready. He's connecting the carabiners right here.
Yeah, I wish we had a better shot of that life jacket, because it's actually a commercial type
Right.
of work life vest. Um, so it kind of leaves your arms, so you have full mobility. You've got a pad on the back, you've got two in the front.
Doing the chest. Yep.
Yeah, in the chest area there. Double strapped on it, etc. But and again, all divers wear helmets, etc. We also recommend, it's not required, but highly recommended, that everybody has cleats on also. Now, it's going to be impossible for the divers to get their fins on and stuff, but if people that are working around the hole, like the
Right.
person in the orange and the person in the vest, they have cleats on the bottom of their feet, so that we don't have to worry about them slipping or losing their balance and falling into the hole. So again, just extra safety.
Right.
What else we got in?
So we're going to take a look at okay, some some bad looking ice.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the picture on the left, it looks like, hey, nice smooth surface, et cetera. It looks nice and solid.
Right.
But in reality, if you look very closely, especially toward the bottom of the picture, you
Yeah.
can see it was all brash ice that is now frozen again.
Right.
There was a thaw, then there was some rain on top of it, and then it was a freeze again. So a nice smooth surface, but not the best ice,
Right.
because once the bubbles start coming up from the divers underneath, it starts to actually get in between the broken up ice, and then will eventually break the surface. And the ice on the right hand side, that's brash ice. It's all broken up, et cetera. Usually you got that in some current situations and stuff like that. But you got to be careful, because if you're down there during brash ice, or you got big ice flows coming down, it can actually flow over the top of you and end up entrapping you. So that's something that we would avoid right
Right.
there. We
Yep.
prefer the more solid ice.
Yeah. And this is
Picture on the left, we would not consider that for ice diving class. This is not a class on this one here. We're actually doing a recovery
this is recovery,
on this
correct?
one here. Yeah, that's why you don't see a lot of the other equipment out there. We still have the safety lines that we're installing. We're getting it all set up right now. We're not
Right.
ready to dive by any means right yet, so we're still preparing it.
Right.
But to
So
cut
here's
the
one
hole,
of
we use
yep,
chainsaws.
chainsaws. Yep.
Yep.
With
Um, Go
vegetable
ahead.
oil.
Yeah, because in some areas you're not allowed to use the chain oil to lubricate it, because could pollute the water itself. So you have to use a vegetable oil or something similar
Right.
to that. The only thing is, it doesn't it congeals a lot of
Yeah.
times, depending on the conditions. So that can vary. We use Husqvarna or steel. Prefer one or the other. It's up to the individuals, but we also use logging saws. We didn't, these weren't saws that we'd buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or something. These were actual logging saws that we would purchase from in the area that we were in. I mean, we had some logging stores where they sold logging equipment, so we invested in those with long blades on them.
Yeah.
Usually 24 to 30-inch plus blades on them,
Yep.
because of or bars, I should say, not blades, but bars and chains, because of the thickness of the ice that we had up there.
Right.
Yep.
Here's some of the tools.
Yeah, axes for like freezing or freeing some gear that might be frozen to an ice sheet. Just got to be careful because it does spray chips all over the place. You need to have eye protection on. And what's on the right is ice tongs. And what actually works better than ice tongs are the tongs that they use to move railroad ties. They're longer, so you don't have to bend over quite so far and hurt,
Oh,
have your back sore by the end of the day. Because again, all those ice blocks have to be pulled out of the
oh,
hole.
right,
Um, so they work really well, and the points that they have on them are really nice too. Plus, they're lightweight; they're aluminum, so they're a lot lighter than the standard steel ice tongs themselves, which you can get very large sizes also. But the other thing is that's missing on those ice tongs. We always put a lanyard on them.
right,
If it's by the hole, we've got lanyards on our tools. So if for some reason you dropped it, it's lanyard to your wrist, and the tool doesn't end up going to the bottom.
right. And like
Yep.
with a chainsaw, the chainsaw has a lanyard on it, and it also has a line to a tuna ball, so that if it does fall in, the tuna ball is there as well
Yeah, and even
for
our ice
safety.
spuds that we use
Yep,
to chip ice or to move blocks around, et cetera. Everything's got lanyards on them, and they've got the heavier stuff like the spuds. We would have a tuna ball on those or a float ball
right,
along with the chainsaws. Yep.
right. You know, one thing we didn't mention,
What's that?
which is always comical when we do these classes, is you know, we often have a lot of the students will cut the triangle, but we allow them to go ahead and cut the ice blocks out. And when we take the ice blocks out, we always talk about, hey, at the end of the day, we always put them back in the hole, right?
Yeah, so you got to number
So we tell them,
them.
okay, make sure when you're putting the ice blocks back in, you put them in the right order. Because didn't you guys number those when you took them out? And
Yeah.
they would always look puzzled at us like, we were supposed to do what? Yeah, you're supposed to number all those blocks so that when they go back in, they all fit back in a row. And they always would look at us like, oh, I think these guys are serious.
Yeah. What
It
we would
was
do is a circle that goes all the way around, about every 10 feet or so, 12 feet, we would take the chainsaw and just make a little star cut in the chainsaw, or in the ice rather, with the chainsaw. And then we would pound stakes in all the way around the hole. And then we put caution tape all the way
right.
around,
Yeah, it was
to
in that
keep
picture.
bystanders from coming into the area, et cetera. We did a lot of our ice training during the Lake George Winter Carnival up in Lake George, New York.
Right,
We did 5 weeks of ice training in a row, week after week after week for the Winter Carnival up there. So there were times that we would have hundreds and hundreds of people out on the ice. So we needed to account for all that additional weight. And that's why the more people, the bigger the circle got, to
right,
keep the weight away from where we've got the hole, et cetera,
right,
to prevent any ice sag from occurring, et cetera. Periodically, we'd get somebody that would, duck underneath the yellow line or attempt to go over. So we would also have part of our staff, they'd watch to make sure that nobody came within inside the circle. Some people wanted to go up and try to get a close look to the hole. Those are the people that are going to slip and fall in.
right.
So you can't let that happen.
And it was
Again, they don't have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead. You're right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they
Finish.
don't have flotation devices on, or a zipped up dry suit with wrist seals attached. They don't enter the circle.
Right, right. And it was always interesting because um, there were so many people that would come around to watch the ice diving, and they would always ask, the questions. And like you're saying, we always had staff, or maybe it was you and I walking around, talking to people, basically doing what we're doing right now, right? Explaining what's happening, what's going on in the hole, who's out there, and always those questions. Like, where does the ice go? And, you know, what happens to the ice? Or,
Yeah.
you know, uh, how cold is the water? Those
Or,
types of questions.
or we had the one student, his mom would happen to be there watching. Remember that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so as soon as they went under with the instructor, I looked at my wrist and like I was looking at a watch and I was like, all right, lunch. And
Yeah,
everybody just dropped the line for a second and turned their backs. And she's like, what?
yeah, I remember. Then when he came, I remember when we brought him out of the hole and we got him up and he was successful in class and everything. We said, you don't have to cry. Your mom's over there. You're all right. We know you're cold, but
And I don't know how old Neil was at the time, but I was like, did you have a permission slip from your mom to be here
yeah, exactly.
today?
And she was standing right over there by
Yeah.
by the hole.
Yeah. She's since passed away. Our condolences to Neil.
Yeah, yeah,
But
but you know, it was always great, especially walking around the crowd because the crowd would want to get a picture taken with you or, hey, you're in your dry suit. Oh, can I get a picture with you or something like that? Or, you, you know, it was just, some of the questions were very, very genuine. Other questions you were like, really?
yeah. And what made it unique is because we were with the Winter Carnival, we had hundreds of spectators. We used a bullhorn a lot of times, and
Right,
we would explain exactly what we were doing to
right,
the audit because they, like you said, they all have interests, they all have questions that they want to ask. So we're trying to explain it all, and then we leave a question and answer time, and go around and ask people what their question is, and then answer it for them, etc.
right,
But they get to see, the 20-minute plus dive and the divers come back and how we get them back up out of the hole and et cetera, and get the next group ready. So we don't have a lot of downtime.
right, right.
So one
Because
team's ready to go and the next team's at the surface.
right, and that's another good point. I mean, it's frigid cold out there, right? So we have the team that's in the water, and like you said, the next team, soon as they drop in, we're getting everybody ready for that. Um, as soon as they're done with that second dive, get those guys out of the hole. That other team is ready to go, so
Yep.
that there's not a lot of downtime, and we're always moving, right?
Yep.
So I mean, it's it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of work, and it's probably the safest diving you can do because of the we didn't talk about the full body harnesses and things like that, but we'll do that next time.
Sounds good,
Um,
Ed.
yep. So
This is just me a quick one, and then
yep,
we'll continue on with ice diving here with the next time we get together.
yep. Well, thanks, Rich.
All right,
Appreciate
buddy.
it, and we'll see you guys soon.